Hey everyone, and welcome back to the deep dive today. We're diving into something that I think hits close to home for a lot of us, becoming financially mature, even if you haven't started yet.
Right.
You know, that feeling of truly being in control of your money, it can feel really daunting, especially when you realize that 56% of Americans can't even handle a surprise $1,000 expense.
It's a startling statistic, isn't it? And what's even more surprising is that we see this pattern globally. India, for example, faces similar challenges.
Yeah.
It's like this silent financial struggle that so many people are dealing with.
Exactly. So in this deep dive, we're going to explore the reasons behind this late bloomer phenomenon. We're going to share some inspiring stories and, most importantly, give you practical advice to take control of your finances wherever you are in the world. You submitted some great sources, so let's jump right in.
Okay.
Okay, so first, why are so many of us playing catch-up when it comes to finances? What are the articles you sent points a finger
Hit you
at our education system?
Oh, yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? We spend years learning algebra and history, but very few of us graduate knowing how to budget, invest, or even understand basic financial concepts. In India, only 27% of the population is financially literate, compared to 57% in the U.S.
Wow, that's a huge gap. It's almost like we're set up to learn these things the hard way out in the real world.
It's true, and then you add social media to the mix, constantly bombarding us with images of the perfect life, exotic vacations, designer clothes,
Yeah.
the latest gadgets, especially in India and the U.S.
Oh, absolutely. That pressure to keep up with the Joneses can really push people to spend beyond their means just to project a certain image.
Precisely, and it feeds into that live for the moment mentality, which is especially prevalent among younger generations. They prioritize experiences over long-term financial planning, which can have consequences down the road.
All right, so we've got this lack of education, social pressure, and the allure of instant gratification, a recipe for financial trouble, right? But before we get too discouraged, let's look at someone who did things differently. You mentioned Warren Buffett and how he's basically a financial superhero.
He's an excellent example of how consistency and long-term thinking can lead to incredible wealth. He started small, delivering newspapers as a kid and focused on saving and investing early on. That's a key takeaway from his story. Time is your biggest asset when it comes to building wealth.
He's like the tortoise in the financial race.
Yeah.
Proving that slow and steady wins. Now, in one of the research papers you sent, there's this interesting point about how even those who earn a good income can struggle financially. What's the missing piece there?
Well, you see, earning a lot doesn't automatically translate into financial stability. It's all about how you manage your money. In India, 70% of people save, but they often focus on short-term goals and miss out on the power of long-term investments. And even in the U.S., you have high earners living paycheck to paycheck due to something called lifestyle inflation, where their expenses rise in tandem with their income.
So it's not about how much you make, but how you make it work for you. That's a really important point.
Absolutely. It challenges the assumption that a high salary equals financial security. It all comes down to making smart choices with your money, regardless of how much you earn.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges.
Yeah.
And some inspiring success stories. But now let's get practical. What can we actually do to turn things around and build that financial maturity, even if we're starting a little late?
That's the exciting part. There are so many actionable steps you can take, regardless of your income or where you are in your financial journey. One of the most important things, as we touched on earlier, is filling those knowledge gaps.
You mean like actually understanding how money works, right? Not just the basics.
Exactly, but how to make it work for us. And the good news is there are tons of resources available. Books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad can be a great starting point, and there are often localized versions or resources in your native language. In India, for example, platforms like Grow and Zerodha's Varsity offer accessible financial education.
So it's about empowering ourselves with knowledge first. Now, in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki talks about the importance of assets versus liabilities. Could you explain that concept a bit further?
Absolutely. Kiyosaki argues that assets put money in your pocket, while liabilities take money out. So a house you live in, that you have a mortgage on, is a liability, while a rental property that generates income is an asset. It's a different way of thinking about money that can shift your perspective.
That makes sense. It's about building a foundation that generates wealth, rather than just accumulating possessions. So once we have that knowledge, what's the next step?
Well, knowledge without action is like a car without an engine. It's time to put that knowledge into practice. And that's where budgeting comes in. You mentioned the 50-30-20 rule earlier. It's a simple yet effective framework.
Right, where 50% of your income goes to needs, 30% to wants, and 20% to savings and investments.
Exactly. It's a guideline that can be adapted to your individual circumstances, but it helps you create a structure for your spending. And don't think of budgeting as restrictive. It's about making conscious choices with your money and ensuring you're allocating it in a way that aligns with your values and goals.
It's like giving every dollar or rupee a purpose.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got knowledge, we've got a budget. What else can we do to streamline this process?
This is where technology comes in. Automation can be your best friend when it comes to managing your finances. Set up automatic transfers to your savings and investment accounts. It takes the guesswork out of saving and investing and makes it a seamless part of your financial routine.
It's like putting your financial goals on autopilot. Are there any apps or platforms you recommend for that?
There are many great options out there, and the best one for you will depend on your specific needs and location. YNAB is popular in the US for budgeting, while FiMoney in India offers a combination of budgeting and investment features.
So it's about finding the tools that work for you. Now, one thing that often gets overlooked is the importance of an emergency fund. Why is that so crucial, especially for those of us who may be playing catch-up financially?
An emergency fund is your safety net. It's there to cushion the blow when unexpected expenses arise, a medical emergency, a car repair, or even a job loss. It can be the difference between weathering a storm and falling into debt.
It provides a sense of security and peace of mind, knowing you're prepared for those what-if scenarios. How much should we aim to save in our emergency fund?
A good rule of thumb is to have 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses saved up. It may seem like a daunting goal, but start small and gradually build it up over time.
So it's a marathon, not a sprint. Now, we've talked about budgeting, saving, and automation. But what about those big long-term financial goals? How do we even begin to tackle those?
That's where goal setting comes in. Think about what you want to achieve financially. Buying a house, starting a business, retiring early, then break those big goals down into smaller, achievable steps. This makes them feel less overwhelming and more manageable.
So it's like creating a roadmap for your financial journey. And by breaking it down into milestones, we can celebrate those smaller wins along the way.
Absolutely. And remember, it's your journey. Don't compare yourself to others. Focus on what matters to you and what aligns with your values. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to financial success.
It's about finding what works for you in your unique circumstances. Now, in one of the articles you sent, there's this interesting section on the power of community when it comes to finances. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's incredibly valuable to surround yourself with people who support your financial bills and aspirations. It could be friends, family members, or even online communities. Having that support system can help you stay motivated, accountable, and inspired.
It's like having a financial cheerleading squad in your corner. It can also make those tough financial conversations.
Exactly. A little less awkward, right?
Right, yeah.
And it helps to normalize the conversation around money. It's still a taboo topic for many, but the more we talk openly about it, the less shame and stigma there will be.
It's about breaking down those barriers and creating a space where people feel comfortable, seeking help and support when they need it. Now, at what point does it make sense to involve a professional, like a financial advisor? That's a great question, and something I've wondered about myself. When does it make sense to call in the pros?
Well, a financial advisor can be incredibly helpful, especially as your financial situation becomes more complex. They can provide personalized advice, help you navigate investments, and plan for major life events like buying a home or retirement.
So it's like having a personal trainer, but for your money.
Exactly. They help you create a plan and stay on track, but it's crucial to find an advisor who is trustworthy, reputable, and shares your values and goals. Do your research, ask for recommendations, and don't hesitate to shop around until you find the right fit.
It's a big decision. So you want to make sure you feel comfortable and confident with the person you choose. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about education, budgeting, automation, emergency funds, goal setting, and even seeking professional guidance. It's clear there are many tools and strategies to help us on this journey to financial maturity. But I think it's important to acknowledge that it's not always easy. There will be challenges and setbacks along the way.
You're absolutely right. Financial maturity is a journey, not a destination. And like any journey, there will be bumps in the road. It's important to remember that setbacks are a normal part of the process. Don't let them discourage you.
It's about learning from those experiences and using them as opportunities to grow and adapt.
Precisely. And remember, you don't have to do everything perfectly from the start. Start small. Be consistent. and celebrate those wins along the way.
Those small wins can really add up over time. And yet, it's not just about the numbers in a bank account.
Yeah.
Financial well-being is about so much more than that.
Absolutely. It's about having the freedom and security to live the life you want, to pursue your passions, to
Mhm.
support your loved ones, and to make a positive impact on the world.
It's about feeling empowered to make choices that align with your values and your vision for the future.
Well said. It's about shifting from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance and realizing that you have the power to shape your financial destiny.
I love that. It's about taking ownership of our finances
Hmm.
and creating a life of possibility. Now, before we wrap up, I always like to leave our listeners with something to ponder. What's one small change you think everyone can make today to start building a better financial future?
That's a fantastic question. It could be as simple as setting up an automatic transfer to your savings account, downloading a budgeting app, or even just committing to reading one personal finance article a week.
It's about taking that first step, no matter how small.
Exactly, and building momentum from there. Remember, small, consistent actions can lead to remarkable results over time.
Absolutely. Well, this has been an insightful deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
It's been my pleasure. Remember, you have the power to create a brighter financial future.
That's right. It's your journey, and you've got this. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time for another insightful exploration.